So I guess, Rick, so Ricardo could just send his email or contact information. We'll follow up with him after the meeting.
Yes, I'll get in touch
In the
with you.
chat room.
Make sure we have the information.
Are we ready to move on?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The next item concerns automation of application submittal. Nevada's automated online license renewal application has been operational for many years. With the recent events related to COVID-19, we've encouraged all of our licensees to renew online. This campaign was successful and has enabled us to keep our renewal process up to date during this emergency period. During April, that usage spiked at 67%. Our automated online new application project has progressed more slowly than we hoped, as it was necessary to delay the start of testing that was planned for March. We designed this process to help ensure applications are complete when submitted and to allow applicants to upload supporting documents throughout the process. Many of the manual steps performed by staff will also be automated. So while we are not at the finish line yet, we are excited about implementing this project and look forward to adding online capabilities for other application types in the future. And back to you, Dave.
Thank you, Margie. We have completed the development for a prototype application and an online application. And we have a meeting scheduled for June 18th with a vendor who might be able to assist us in putting this application online. So we're real excited about that. The dilemma, though, is that we'll have an added IT cost, and that'll be something our board will be considering after this joint meeting this morning as to how we can reduce costs. I don't know that we want to spend the money on contracting with a vendor. That's one problem, but the other one will be that the governor or the Department of Finance in California has sent a budget letter out that's precluding hiring contractors or consultants unless it meets certain criteria. I'm not sure that this would, but we're still excited about the opportunity to move this forward. And I know that Justin Paddock has worked closely with Nancy Mathias on your staff and sharing ideas about how to develop an online application that would be so beneficial to our applicants so that when they're filling it out, they're not making a mistake and sending it in, and then we have to return it for corrections. Thank you.
I believe that concludes the staff presentation, Mr. Simpson.
Thank you, Margie. Thank you, David. That was very informative. Appreciate it very much. Now I'm back on track, so good. Do we have any more board comments on items D1 through 4? Please raise your hand if so. Seeing none. Rick, do we have any public comments on items D1 through 4?
There are no further comments at this time.
Thank you. So now we'll move on to agenda item D5, our discussion on COVID-19 in the construction industry. Again, I have a few questions for some of our board members, but at this time I would like to turn it over to Chairman Lay to lead our board discussion.
Thank you, Chairman. The first topic on the agenda item relates to construction as an essential service. Protection of the public's health and safety remain a top priority during the emergency order, and ensuring the public and the access to construction and home remediation services during this time was deemed essential. Construction as essential service further protect the public and industry workers, ensuring commercial and residential projects were not left abandoned and taxpayer dollars lost. To further elaborate on this topic, I would like to turn it over to Board Member Menzies, who sits on the Governor's task force during this pandemic. Mr. Menzies, can you share information on your role with the task force and how the decision for construction to remain an essential service was a benefit to the public as well as the state?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman Lay. Sitting on the task force, since the onset of the pandemic, the Nevada state government has deemed the construction an essential service that is allowed to continue onward. This was a vital and smart decision that we were appreciative of, as we believe the construction cannot stop for our sake of our broader economy. It is imperative that we were allowed to continue at this time. Just one example of this, Southern Nevada construction is one of the few industries other than gaming industries that provide local and state governments with tax revenue and provide essential services. Entities such as Clark County School District and Southern Nevada Water Authority receive hundreds of billions of dollars each year in each land sale. That's all I have, Mr. Lay.
Thank you, Mr. Menzies. Any questions or response from anybody out there? Anybody raised their hand? If not, I'll go on to the next. Ms. Cavan, as a mechanical contractor, can you elaborate on some of the changes you've noticed within the industry and what your thoughts are on the future outlook of construction in Nevada? Ms. Cavan.
Okay, I'm sure I'll be labeled the person of doom and gloom, but I'm going to talk specifically about the commercial side. So obviously, on a federal level, we saw a substantial dip in construction spending nationwide in April and May. On the commercial side in Nevada, we did not see a big slowdown the last 2 months because of, as Mr. Menzies said, construction was deemed essential in Nevada. That was huge for us. But what we did have is a lot of issues with supply chain disruptions as manufacturers were shut down across the country, and that had an effect on schedules and completion times. We did see projects related to travel and tourism shut down for the foreseeable future with the intention of starting up again later. The best indicator for our market, obviously, is with the design professionals, architect and engineers. And the bad news is that they are not busy. The private commercial projects that are in design and pre-construction are being put on hold, again, specifically if they relate to tourism. The university system has shelved major projects that were in design phase for the foreseeable future. It's anticipated that the state public works budget will be for maintenance only, no major construction projects due to lack of funding. The school districts have also pulled back on some of the projects that are in design. Washoe County School District in particular, which is Northern Nevada, has a funding mechanism in place for new construction, but that mechanism is based on sales tax revenue, which remains to be seen. So with both K-12 and higher ed are looking at what the future holds as far as distance learning and how it will affect future design and construction as far as social distancing and additional health and safety measures. So I think Nevada's recovery is going to be tough on our industry, and probably the biggest driver on the private side is a COVID vaccine, which would hopefully bring back tourism to Nevada, and then the rest would follow. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Cavan. Mr. Andis, have there been significant impacts in insurance requirements for the construction industry at this time that you're experiencing?
Thank you, Chairman Lay. Yes, some of the problems that we've run into with our clients has been the reduction in the workforce. And for us as insurance agents, we have to work with trying to reduce the cost of the workers' compensation insurance because of the reduction of the workforce. And as you know, in the state of Nevada, with the Department of Business and Industry, when you register with the Secretary of State, one of the questions that's asked when you register your business is whether or not you have employees. So some of the contractors are forced to continue providing some workers' compensation, even though they may not be performing any work, in order to avoid any fines that would be given to them by the state. The other area that we've seen a vast reduction, because we're not getting a lot of licensees, is the bonds being issued, and especially on some bond jobs. So that's been a reduction. General liability premiums are usually based on the cost of the construction of the work, and those premiums are going down. So for those of us that are in the insurance industry, we are also seeing the results of the COVID-19 effect on our businesses, and such as creating reductions in our revenue. So those are the problems that we've been facing in the industry. Thank
you, Mr. Hernandez. Do any other members from the Nevada board have any comments to add to this topic? Chairman, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Leggett.
Yes, in our case, the landscape industry, the landscape and nursery business in Reno, Nevada, it's been a tale of two industries, so to speak, the worst of times and the best of times. Our landscape construction division has been doing extremely well. We have a city project, a streetscape that has been able to continue as long as we're social distancing. Our best situation is our retail nurseries. They've been allowed to stay open, and we are having the best season ever. On the other side, the landscape maintenance division in the commercial areas has been shut down almost completely. Shopping centers, etc., are not allowed to be open, and they have not been able to work on those. On the other hand, the residential, they've continued working. Homeowners still need their lawn mowed. So again, it's been the worst of times and the best of times for us. We're thrilled about the retail nurseries and our commercial landscaping, and our residential landscaping has continued. And that's my report.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Leggett. Chairman Simpson, are there any comments your board would like to make on this item?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Lay. I would like to ask Kevin Albanese, as one of our larger construction employers in California, how are you addressing construction as an essential service? Is my understanding restrictions also often vary by counties?
Yeah, thank you. We were really in the heart of it with most of our operations, probably 90% of our operations being within the 6 Bay Area counties that the county public health officer ordered the shelter in place and did not include construction as an essential service, but for some very limited exceptions. Since that's changed and we've been allowed to go back to work, the health and safety of our employees continues to be paramount. We've been working closely with our labor partners to be sure that their members and our employees have an opportunity to go back to work safely. Labor and management have really bought into the need to change the culture where if somebody's sick, that they stay home, that's not considered a weakness. With health screenings on certain particular projects, questionnaires before folks go to work, promoting social distancing whenever possible, and then a strict protocol regarding disinfecting tools and equipment after each use. So it's definitely changed the way that we do business. Our office is still at about maybe 15% capacity right now, affording folks the opportunity to work from home. But our craft workers, they simply can't work from home. So we're doing everything in our power to provide a safe opportunity for them to go to work.
Thank you, Kevin. Next, I'd like to ask Augie Beltran, related to job safety. It's my understanding that you were instrumental in developing safety protocols required for construction to be considered as an essential service. How have safety requirements impacted construction labor for the carpenters?
Well, when this thing first came down, just like Kevin said, that a lot of construction wasn't considered essential. So we had to work with our government officials and let them know that we could work safely and efficiently, so our members and their families wouldn't get sick. First thing we did is we talked to our international training center and developed the COVID-19 training program, which we shared with our employers and our members and the building trades. I'm happy to say, at least in Northern California, we've got about 6,000 members that have been trained in how to work in a COVID-19 world. The second thing we did is, as construction became more and more essential, that is, they were allowing private jobs to become essential. One of the things that the counties, the 6 Bay Area counties specifically asked for, was a third-party job site safety accountability officer. And we've been providing that service to our employers because our reps are first aid certified, they're OSHA 30 certified, and they've been providing a service to our employers to go out there and ensure that those jobs are safe. but really the education of public officials to understand that, we in construction, we live safety every day. Got to be safe. Got to make sure you're okay. And so we promoted that. I want to thank Mary Teicher too, because she had a pretty good tour out there in Sacramento. And I think that was the last straw when it came to government officials seeing that how safe that job was, that they started deeming all of construction essential.
Thank you, Augie. I'd like to ask Mary Teichert, as a large public works employer, has this had any impact on you or other contractors' business practices?
There we go. Am I unmuted? All right. Yes, it absolutely has. I'd say the two categories of business that we've worked on are transmission risk and our business risk. As far as transmission risk, I appreciate Augie's comments on the safe job sites. A lot of our practices are similar to what Kevin described as far as a lot of PPE, social distancing, cleaning and sanitization protocols. They have an impact on our business outcomes because a fair amount of the social distancing work requires us to change our production process. For instance, if someone's laying a piece of pipe that's less than 6 feet or they're doing a team lift, they have to wear a pretty extensive PPE, do a JHA, or potentially do things differently than they had been. So we have had a notable productivity impact in cases where that occurs, but the good news is that we can keep doing it safely. On the job site Augie referenced, we had an opportunity to demonstrate to kind of all kinds of interested parties, including government officials, as well as our labor partners and local folks that were interested, how we can actually do construction safely. We can maintain distance as it is possible. It has a business impact. All these things have costs, and I'd say the most important one is the productivity. And on the business risk side, we also have in California, there's a somewhat uncertain workers' comp environment. There's been an executive order that we have. There's a rebuttable presumption that COVID-19 is a workers' comp injury. Teichert is self-insured like many in our industry are, and we have an excellent safety program. Last year, Teichert social company was 0.8, so we have an outstanding safety program, and that's normally how we manage the risk of being self-insured. But at this point, we think that the only way that we can actually address exposures from COVID-19 that don't come from working at the company is through having fewer workers. So we have a hiring chill because anyone that's not already working for us and introduces COVID-19 from outside the workspace is going to be our responsibility. So we're doing everything we can to keep our existing customers meeting their needs and keeping working. But we're also that's the only thing we know of to manage the risk that's been created in this environment for businesses with workers out in the field, since we don't control so many of their actions and the pandemics in a community spread phase. So I'd say that's our main business risk. There's also all of the issues that Ms. Cavan discussed in Nevada as far as supply chain issues and potential work coming down the pipe. Construction, so much of the work we're doing is already underway by the time the pandemic took place, that's mostly continuing to go in the public space. Some of our home building customers are continuing while some have paused, but almost no one is starting new projects. And so we're looking down the road at what's coming next season and next year. As the funding environment changes both for public and private work. So I'd say we're seeing a lot of business risk. We are working really hard to manage the transmission risk, and our outcomes so far suggest that we've been successful. We feel like staying vigilant and following every piece of advice the CDC issues is possible in a construction environment, which is the good news about the essential service that we provide. I think you're still on mute, Mr. Simpson.
Oh, yeah? Am I unmuted now?
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay, next I would like to ask Nancy Springer, a Sacramento County building official, what are some of the building department's inspection challenges?
Okay, good morning, everyone. It's been a new normal, huh? So we had several challenges for us in Sacramento. First off, I'll speak to Sacramento County specifically. We'd already been in the process of streamlining processes and using electronic plan review, going to electronic submittals, even electronic payments. So we could adapt somewhat easily to going fully online. I think the challenges that we had with that was, with the day's notice of, hey, we're going to close this down. How are we going to handle this? We had started a plan previous to the direction, so we were somewhat prepared, but it was more of just getting everybody on VPN that could work remotely, making sure people had proper laptops, cell phones, the things I've been hearing here from everybody else, and just security tied to that, as well as when we put all those into process, different departments had different plans. So whereas our department was fully operation down here downtown, as well as our Gady office, we kept most of our people in-house. Those that could work remotely did. The plan checkers went out there, some of the permatech, but everything else kind of had to happen here. We closed our counters to the public, but we still had people that don't use computers and don't like to do online and had paper plans in progress. So what we did with those was we did drop boxes. We did appointments where they would call us when they're in the parking lot, they're heading in, and we would meet them and then take the project from them. So I think there's similar challenges everybody else had as far as going electronic and with short notice. The other things we ran into was the inspection portion. Well, let me step back. So was the determination of essential construction. Initially, there was no real direction on that. And then the governor came out with some more information, I think all the letters that went through to him. So we were able to, here in Sacramento, just provide full operational services. I know that other jurisdictions, as 6 counties were mentioned in the Bay Area here in California, some of them just deemed affordable housing as essential. Some of them deemed healthcare facilities, low-income housing, temporary housing. Those were the only ones they were inspecting. So those were the differences between jurisdictions became a challenge. Some people even asked if we would come over to that jurisdiction and inspect for them so they could note it from a building inspector. It was kind of, we got some really strange requests. Some other things was the inspections. Obviously, we had to do PPE. We provided that. We weren't considered high risk, but we still would provide the N95 mask, the gloves, the sanitized wipes, gel. We would leave it up to our building inspectors at their discretion whether they would go, if they want to go into residential homes. We had like a checklist that they would go through for safety. Have you a fever? Is anybody sick? We kind of had these things. We tried to do most of the inspection from outside. If it was a water heater in the garage, we would go into the garage. We would never go into the house. So, if we could do something through a window. We did not agree with virtual inspections by video, or I think a lot of the inspection platforms they used were like Blitz, Skype, Zoom, FaceTime, and those kind of similar means. Sac County had tried it years ago. I wasn't the building official at the time, but they had problems with it. They want to be able to hand feel that a bolt is tight. They want to physically see all the way around items. Especially final inspections, it's really necessary to get in and do plug tests and different things. So we were able to maintain without the virtual, but I do know that many building departments did do virtual inspections, and they had some challenges in that getting the setup, training the staff, and then really just working through any little bugs that they had with it. And then maybe just doing some virtuals, simplifying which inspections could go there and which not. So that was part of those kind of challenges. Everybody pretty much for the most part that had electronic and online abilities, they closed their permit counters. Others that did not, your smaller jurisdictions, what they did is they kind of closed down, like maybe they only open 2 or 3 days a week, and they would do by appointments. I know one jurisdiction said they would do 17 appointments a day, and they were half-hour appointments. And they would make sure that all the CDC practices were in place when they did that. Let's see, some of the other things that came up were that, so unions became an issue for us, and internal unions in regards to what staff couldn't do, and some of the complaints, and working through those issues. Sometimes it kind of put a hold on us being able to get out to the public. So that was something that was, we kind of expected it, but not the level that it happened. And we did work through that. Stress levels became an issue. We had a lot of people some people were just fearful and didn't want to come to work. We had a lot of people that filed on the different executive orders and emergency leaves. So we had several at risk. So that was something to deal with. So our workload here in Sacramento, I have to say that ours maybe did a minor decrease. We had already had a little decrease in February as it started coming on, but I want to say maybe mid-March a little bit, but like my revenue, I dropped a little bit in February, but March, I was actually exceeded the last 2 years. Whereas in 2018, say like I had 1.2 million, and then in March, 1.2, and then this March, it was 1.3. So, and then we dropped just barely a little bit in April, and right now in May, we're matching 2018 and we're up. We're at 1.4. So our workload has not stopped. The inspections, and like we said, I think when people were trying to figure out if they were essential or not, and if getting over the fear of being out there and how it was going to operate, once they kind of got through those moments, inspections started really coming in, and submittals started coming in as they learned how to submit online. So that we had like an increase of, I want to say almost 65% increase just online submittals. And the challenges there, and this was noted by other building departments, was that just being able to work through that, emails and phone calls started really coming in, and they would pile up. And so you had to reassign people, you had to retrain people, you had to do frequently asked questions, and just kind of work through the amount of emails and phone calls that started coming in along with all the submittals. Normally I would have maybe 3 people working on online submittals. I have about 12 working on them right now. So that's kind of like moving people around. And then those individuals, the building departments that did the appointments, were telling me that they would be backed up 3 to 4 weeks on an appointment list. So here you get somebody who wants a permit, say this week, and they'd have to wait 3 or 4 weeks just to come in to do that. And those ones were not offering the online. They were offering like email and using drop boxes. So that was something that they used. And like I said, I think in the end, it was just more of the hardest one I think that we had to deal with was the fear that people had. I really think we worked through everything else. It's normal operation. You got something new. How do you deal with it? Change your process, have an open mind, be flexible. We deal with that daily. So we were able to adjust. I think what was unknown was absentee of people, them being comfortable, trying to alleviate their fears for them. I still get some people who are still saying that they're not even sure if they're going to return. Some people are just taking it really, some at a high level and some at a low level. So you deal with the different ones. So in close, right now, what we're dealing with is the reopening plans and adjusting our workplaces. Basically, adjusting the field workspace in the sense of making sure staff is aware, the field inspectors are aware that the construction sites have requirements that they have to abide by. So they'll take their temperatures when they go in, and they've been all okay with that once we worked with the union with that. And then there was also, just making sure that they would keep their distances out there as well. So, and then doing that in here, we got X's on the floors, we got the little markers, we got the shields up. We're, just looking at how we're going to reopen, and probably we'll do that by keeping doors closed, go to appointments and slowly open the doors 2 days a week, that kind of thing, and stick with the online and some of the remote working. One thing we did find as a bonus is the online submittals and the remote working, staff got, production went up. So even though we had to have a lot of people doing it, they were able to get a lot of work pumped out. So that's kind of what we dealt with.
Well, thank you, Nancy. That was very informative. It's kind of amazing to me that, well, not really, I guess. More inspections, more people at home doing what they need to do, huh? At this time, do we have any other board comment? Please raise your hand if so. I'm looking through my list and I'm not seeing any. Rick, do we have anything from the public?
No public comments on this item.
Mr. Simpson, I believe we had one more board member from Nevada that's going to
I
comment
see it.
on job safety.
Joe.
No,
Thank you. Yes. Ms. Tykert brought up a very good point with COVID-19 and specifically with workers' comp and the workforce. And this is something that I think some contractors and employers are going to be faced with, and especially here in Nevada, because we have the casino industry, which has a high concentration of patrons that visit there. So I'm not sure how this will be dealt with, but if you have an employee that decides they feel safer by not coming back to work because of the potential of catching the COVID-19, I'm not sure what kind of position you put yourself in if you terminate the person or if you can terminate the person. So not really clear, but I think this is going to be an issue that's going to be happening. I know, as was mentioned also by Ms. Springer, with the unions, you have issues with prevailing wages and the cost of providing services, I should say benefits to their employees. So I'm seeing that two issues are going to happen besides that. The other one is with the business interruption insurance, which is a coverage that is specifically excluded, especially for viruses. So there's going to be a lot of litigation that's going to be occurring coming up this, I think, this next year as we kind of work through this pandemic. So I just wanted to put that out there. I'm not sure what the fallout's going to be or the results, but as an employer, if you do force somebody to come back to work and they do get a COVID-19, that could be a workplace hazard. And so you could be liable under the employer's liability as opposed to the benefits that are provided under the workers' compensation. So those were the comments I wanted to make.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Do we have any other board comments? Down my list, not seeing any. Rick, are we still no public comment?
I believe Mr. Wells had something to add on job safety.
Okay, I'm not seeing a hand, but Mr. Wells, go ahead.
Well, I wasn't sure if I got my my ears clipped on that one, but thank you, California Board, and thank you, Ms. Green. You know, I hear everybody talking about everything that that COVID has been, and it certainly has been a challenge for everybody, and nobody's been immune from the effects of it. Rather than jump into the same old, I kind of had a little different take on it. I also see the good things that happened during COVID. I mean, I see communities coming together. I see food pantries being put together. We actually did one at our company. Oddly enough, our industrial suppliers, when we couldn't get paper goods, had all the paper goods we wanted. So we knocked on their door and set up pantries. And 6 months ago, if you'd have told me that we would have a work from home program, I would have laughed at you. It was brought up old school construction. You have to be there. And we immediately set up work from home, and it worked fantastic. So we now have that in our tool belt where, you know, before COVID, we would have never had that. And I see people going from innovation, and the word that I keep hearing come up is pivot. And now people and businesses and employees, employers, everybody is pivoting. And we heard all kinds of great examples here today of people changing the way that they do business, changing the way that they come to work, cleaning the workspace. I mean, I don't think I ever disinfected my office in my whole life. Now it gets disinfected. The whole office gets disinfected twice a week. it just, and we talk about it as a board, we've talked about it as a company, and the California board brought it up as well, and that is the savings in travel expense. We've talked about possible savings in office expense. So maybe the work from home has some savings benefits for us as well. You know, PPE was no stranger to construction. We've always had it, used it, and we also had the opportunity, for some reason, hospitals and healthcare people couldn't get PPE, and we didn't have any problem buying cases of masks. So, you know, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. We found people just giving N95 masks to healthcare workers because they were re-wearing them and couldn't get them. So I kind of look at it as there's really some good things that came from COVID as well. I'm not saying that COVID is a good circumstance. I'm just saying that looking beyond the challenges, there was some really good things that came about, and businesses pivoting and changing the way that they worked and did business, had some secondary benefits to the challenges that we all faced. That's all I had. Thank you.
I'd like to jump in with Chairman Simpson, because I know we've got some other board members that wanted to discuss some of these items. If I could jump in, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure.
Mr. Menzies, what were some of the main concerns discussed among the task force members during the early stages of the pandemic? And how do you feel Nevada has addressed those concerns to OSHA and state leaders' satisfaction? I think you're on mute.
Thank you, Chairman Lay. I think we're discussing job site safety.
Yes.
As construction's been allowed to continue despite other businesses shuttering due to the lockdown, the industry as a whole has taken the situation very seriously and have been doing everything possible to ensure workers are operating safely and responsibly on the job sites. This includes consulting and following guidelines with OSHA and other regulatory statewide, and industries has made sure that workers are adequately educated via safety stand downs on job sites so that workers can be up to speed on exactly how to comply with social distancing requirements and all other essential precautions at this time. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Menzies. Do any other members from Nevada want to comment on this? Let's see if there's any hands being raised. Don't see any. Chairman Simpson, do you know if any of your board members would like to address anything else, and they've already on this topic of safety?
I'm looking at my my sheet here, and I'm not seeing any hand raised. Does anyone have a comment they would like to make?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a comment.
Go ahead, David.
And more on the essentiality of construction. We've heard from some of the industry partners on both boards speak on the challenges, the new challenges this COVID-19 has brought to our industry, and moving into the COVID era. But a lot of the what was impacted negatively, at least in what I noticed, was a lot of the interior work, a lot of tenant improvement where you couldn't have that social distancing. But the outside work, the exterior work, still went on after we got over the hump of whether it was essential or not. But with a lot of the exterior work consists of the infrastructure, which our first responders drive on, our the public safety, they drive on that if they have to evacuate or whatnot. So I just wanted to touch on how critical a lot of, especially on the commercial side, of how critical construction is to our public safety. So that was it.
Thank you, David. Anyone else on either board?
Yeah, if there's nobody else, I'd like to go to a little bit more on the Nevada board side on discussing business practices. And with that, I can kind of elaborate on my own personal experience. I'm a home builder. And we've had to change just about every practice we have because of the COVID-19, and to ensure that we adhere to the governor's restrictions that he's put on us as an essential business. It involves everything to checking in subcontractors when they arrive on site to make sure that they're not experiencing any symptoms, to how we social distance, to figuring out, as Mary said, laying pipe, try carrying in a 5-foot piece of granite that's 5 foot by 5 foot with one person. You can't do it, and you got to be close. So again, we had to address those type of issues and overcome those with how we perform with PPE, to how people's houses, because we just can't go in them like we used to. And of course, safety issues we have to address right away, but non-essential items we put on the back burner, and just tried to keep in contact with our customers just to make sure they know we're not ignoring them, because that's, they have to look at it every day. If they've got an issue in their house, especially if they're working from home, they see that item every day, and I'm sure it's not making them happy when they've got an imperfection in their house that they need to change. Also, the way we do business in our office, we started off with the telecommuting when this first hit, and we've slowly worked our way back into the office with about 95% of our employees, because they wanted to come back to the office. So we've gone ahead and done a lot of the PPE things in the office, social distancing on the floor, one-way traffic, plexiglass. We bring lunch in for the employees, because there's not a lot of options for lunch for them, and they're all individually wrapped, and no buffet style buffet lunches or anything like that. So it has changed the way we do business. We're doing a lot more Zoom meetings, and those have become a lot more efficient for us, like a lot of the other members have stated. So it's changed the way we've done business. In a lot of ways, it's better. In a lot of ways, it's a little bit of a burden, but that's kind of the wrap on how we've experienced it. With that, Mr. Leggett, as a landscape contractor, what changes have you had to implement to address the directives and calm customer fears during this time? You might be on mute, Mr. Leggett.
I just figured it out. Thank you. Well, one of the things that we've done, obviously, the good news is our stores have been allowed to stay open, but we are insisting that anyone coming through the store wear a mask. In terms of construction, obviously, we're abiding by the state mandates, social distancing, masks, and so forth. That's all I'm really aware of in terms of the landscaping.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Do any other Nevada board members have any comment to add on this? I'll just go through and see if there's any hands raised. I not see any. With that, Chairman Simpson, do you have any hands raised on your side that would like to address other than the comments your board has already made?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'd like Nevada to be able to discuss the last topic, which is on this item, which is challenges with building inspections. And does anybody have any comments on that they've had with Nevada members on building inspections? I'm not really seeing anybody out there, so I'll address on my personal experience. I think in Nevada, the building officials have done an incredible job, at least in Southern Nevada, with adapting to this. At the beginning, we saw a few little delays and things, but as time went on, they did a great job of adapting to not slow us down from everything from permit issuance to field inspections by doing a combination of different type of video, digital inspections to in-person inspections, things that weren't deemed that essential to life safety. They did a really good job of doing the video things on that and anything else, and then doing the combination of course, the in-person ones. They put a lot of their field personnel at home and things like that. But as an industry, at least on the residential side, I'm very impressed with how they were able to adapt to this and not slow down the construction industry as a whole. With that, does anybody else have anything they would like to add to that side of it from the Nevada side? Go ahead and jump in. I'm not seeing any hands. Okay, with that, Chairman Simpson, is there anything your team would like to add to that?
I'm not seeing any hands, Chairman Lai.
Okay, so that concludes our portion of the discussion on item 5 from the Nevada board side. So with that, I will turn it back to you.
Well, that concludes ours as well. I'm not seeing any other board hand raised. Any further comments from the California board? Not seeing anything from the public. Rick.
No public comments at this point.
Okay. Well, I would like to just say thank you to our Nevada board members. Apologize for any clunkiness. We're all getting used to the new world a little bit, and these types of meetings. So they're a little bit clunky, but I'm sure we'll all get used to them and make them much better. But I really valued a lot of the input today, and I'm sure those that were here got a lot out of it. Public got a lot out of it, and again, I just wanted to thank everyone for being here today and for this joint meeting. You have anything you'd like to add, Chairman Lay?
Yes, I would, and I concur. I think this meeting went fantastic considering the new technology and all of us not being totally used to it. So I'm very happy with the results and what we obtained. So I echo your comments on that, Chairman Simpson. With this, though, I would like to ask Ms. Green, have we received a new public comment via email since the start of the meeting?
No, we have not, Mr. Lay.
Thank you. I would like to take this time to extend our appreciation to the California board for today's discussion. We look forward to hosting this meeting with you next year, hopefully in person, but if we have to do it this way, I'm sure we'll get through it and hopefully it'll be a little bit better than what we were able to do this year because of our experience with that. So Ms. Green, do you have anything to add?
I would just like to thank the California board that we've continued this relationship, our working relationship for so long, and great seeing all of your faces, and hope to see you again soon. Thank you again for everything.
Thank you, Ms. Green. With that, may I please get a motion to adjourn the Nevada State Contractors Board meeting?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those not in favor? Of course, none. The Nevada meeting is adjourned at 10:42 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Lay. And with that, the California board meeting, we're going to take a quick recess. It is 10:42, and at 10:52, we shall resume our meeting. So take a quick break.
Okay, this is for those of you either watching us on our webcast on YouTube or Facebook Live. If you do want to participate in this meeting at all, you will need to either check in and log into WebEx, or you will need to phone in. To get those instructions, you would need to go to the actual board meeting agenda. To do that, just go to CSLB's homepage. Up at the top of the page, there is a banner. And on that banner, it links to the YouTube feed. It also links to WebEx. So if you want to participate over your computer, you would click on the WebEx link and register and get online there. It also has the board meeting agenda and the board packet. If you click on the agenda, there's a couple ways. If you want to just call in and not worry about seeing what's happening online or seeing pictures, you can just phone into the number, use the meeting codes that are there, and you can participate via the phone. Now, if you do that and you do want to make a comment, you'll notice in the instructions, you will need to press *9 on your phone. That will raise your hand on my screen. When we get to that point of the public comment, I'll see that your hand is there and I'll be able to call on you. I won't be able to by name because it doesn't give me your name, but your phone will beep and it'll let you know that your phone's being unmuted. So when we get to that point, that's how that'll work. So if you're going to be logging in onto WebEx, the way if you want to participate is you're going to want to open your chat feature. If you mouse over your picture, once you get onto WebEx, you're going to see some circles pop up at the bottom of your screen. One of those circles, it looks like a little call out. If you've looked at comic books and they've got the little thing where somebody's speaking, you see a little circle and little lines going towards someone's mouth. That's it's called a call out sign. So you'll see a button with that call out sign on it. You go ahead and click on that. That will open up your chat feature. And what you're going to want to do is to send a note to the host, which is me, and it just say, I would like to make a comment on this item. I'll also send out notes to you throughout the meeting, letting you know that we're getting to different agenda items. So if there's a specific agenda item you would like to speak about, you do not need to send me a note just generically that you want to comment on, like agenda item F or something. Wait till we get to agenda item F, send me the message then. That way I'll be able to keep things in order. If you send me something early, there's a really good chance that I'm going to mess it up, and I'm either going to forget it or I'm going to just not note it. So please wait until that agenda item comes up. I'm happy to call on you and make sure that we get your public comments. So that's how that procedure works. If you end up on WebEx, you can send me messages, send it to the host, and I'll try to respond. All right, so that's it. So we are in a break, so stand by, and the regular part of the board meeting, beginning with agenda item E, will be starting in just a few minutes.
By my clock, it's now 10:52, and I'd like to welcome everyone back. We will now cover the Construction State License Board specific agenda items. We begin with agenda item E, presentation of certificates and recognition. It is now my honor to recognize two outstanding board members whose terms are expiring. First, Michael Layton, who was unable to be here with us today, and long-time board member David Diaz. First, Michael Layton was appointed by Assembly Speaker Anthony Rendon in September 2016. During his tenure, Mike served on 4 committees: licensing, legislative, public affairs, and enforcement. His background with the Southern California pipe trades provided strong construction knowledge. Mike was always willing to step in as committee chair when needed, and always remembered consumer protection is the highest priority for the board. Mike's participation in board meetings and service to staff on enacting service and repair consumer protection measures is very much appreciated. Thank you, Mike, from the board. Does any board members have comments for Mike? Not seeing any. Next, I would like to recognize board member David Diaz. David was appointed by Governor Edmund Brown Jr. in April 2011 and has been twice reappointed in June 2012 and June 2016. When I said David was a longtime board member, I wasn't kidding, because David has been a member of the board for 9 years, provided CSLB and the public a tour and a meeting location at the Sheet Metal Workers Training Facility in Fairfield. David has worked closely with staff to develop strategies to achieve HVAC permit compliance and effective enforcement strategies relating to heating and air conditioning scams. In addition, David may have set a board member record for notifying CSLB staff of unlicensed practices. Interesting, many of these unlicensed contractors were working in homes in his Pleasanton neighborhood. We are not sure about your choice of neighbors, David. Speaking of neighbors, David also owns a second home in South Lake Tahoe where he's at today. David's South Lake Tahoe neighbors include black bears and a few unlicensed contractors. David has reported he gets along with bears better than the neighbors. On a more serious note, I will now read the plaque that David I should have already gotten. The Contractors State License Board thanks David Diaz, board member from 2011 to 2020, and board chair from 2014 to 2015. In recognition of your outstanding contributions to the Contractors State License Board, the people of California, and the construction industry. Thank you for a job well done. David, do you have any comments you would like to make at this time?